What do you do when your Drupal site is acting weird? And before I move on, I want to actually give a shout out to this guy named Johann Falk. He works for a company called Node One, and he created this really, really awesome Drupal learning series called Learn Drupal 7 with Node One. And I have to admit, this is actually how I got started learning Drupal, and it is a really, really awesome learning series. It's a bunch of screencasts, and I love his teaching style. So I really recommend that you watch this if you're serious about learning Drupal. You want to get beyond just the basics that I'm covering with you. I really recommend that you spend some time and watch these screencasts because his screencasts are really, really awesome. And I'd like to thank Johan for being for putting out such awesome screencasts. They've really helped me out a lot. He's got one of his screencasts is called "Some Tips for When Your Site Acts Weird," and it's a really good screencast. And so I'm going to, with all apologies to Johan, I'm going to steal his title and basically say, what do you do when your site starts acting weird? And I'm going to give you the same advice that Johan gives. Okay, we're going to start with, I'm going to introduce a couple basic tools that you can use because some weird things will happen with your Drupal site. Sometimes you'll add some content and you're like, what the heck? Why isn't this stuff showing up or whatever? Um, and let me give you an example, okay? I don't know if this will work or not. We'll just fingers crossed, okay? We've got this article here, this tour diary update about Winnipeg. See this? This like Winnipeg rocks down here. What if I actually search for that? Okay, let's search for that. And it tells me that my search yielded no results. Okay, that doesn't make sense to me because I clearly have an article here called Tour Diary Update Winnipeg Rocks. Okay, so why isn't it showing up? Well, this is where I want to introduce to you this concept of cron. And to go look at this, let's go click on the configuration settings tab over here. And we see this under the systems box. It says cron. I know it just sounds fun to say, right? My students always laugh when I say cron, so just go ahead and laugh. It is a funny word. Cron, it basically says manage automatic site maintenance tasks. What does that mean? Let's click through on there and read this, okay? And it says, okay, cron takes care of running periodic tasks like checking for updates and indexing content for search, okay? Indexing content for search. Here's a perfect example of what cron is really useful for. Cron does a whole bunch of other things, obviously, too. But when you create new content, when you add new content to your site, okay, it doesn't just automatically all get indexed for your Drupal site to be like. It's not like you can just search for it and it just suddenly shows up, okay? Um, for various technical reasons that I won't really get into right now, okay, what Drupal does instead is it sort of saves all that housework. It's kind of like housework, right, where it sort of has to organize everything. It saves it, and it only does it periodically. And in this case, the way that the default is that it only does it every 3 hours. You can actually change these. You can change it to never. That's probably not a good idea. Every 1 hour, every 3 hours. I'm going to leave it at 3 hours for now. But it's kind of like, this is a way that Drupal can be more efficient, right? Think about it. Like, if you're like, if you're organizing some sort of a task, you probably don't do everything every single moment. Like when you're checking email, for example, you probably don't, well, if you want to be efficient, probably not a good idea to check your email like every 5 seconds, although I know a lot of people do it that way. You might want to try to be a bit more efficient by only checking your email once every 3 hours or once every 6 hours. You're batching all your tasks together to sort of be more efficient at it, okay? I'm sort of, that's a really loose interpretation here, but go with it, okay? So sometimes that works fine. Okay, that's great for efficiency, but it's not necessarily useful for us because I added this content and I want it to show up now. So we can actually force cron to run right now. We can say, you know what, screw this schedule. I want you to index this content right now. I want you to do all that housekeeping right now. Okay, and we can see here that it was last run 1 hour and 48 minutes ago. So we have like, another hour and 10 minutes or 12 minutes to go. Forget that. I want you to run it right now. So I'm going to go ahead and click Run Cron. And this is a really useful thing to do, okay, when your site is acting weird. Okay, why? Because any sort of back-end housekeeping that the site needs to do, go ahead and click Run Cron. Hey, there's no harm. You can run it as many times. You're not going to break your site by running it again. Okay, so you can do that, and that takes care of all that back-end housekeeping, including indexing content for search. So now Let's look for that word. Whoa, what happened here? Hey, look, it automatically updated it for me. Let's go back and start this over again. Boy, Drupal, you're moving too fast for me. Winnipeg. Let's look for Winnipeg, and look, search results, it shows up. Okay, and that's because we ran cron and now things are showing up. So this is really useful, if you've added some sort of content and it's not showing up in your search, make sure you've run cron. Okay, second thing I'm going to show you is this idea of clearing caches. Okay, and so to do that, we're going to go back to configuration. Okay, and under here, we're going to look at down here, performance. Okay, performance. And here we can clear all the caches. And this just sort of, again, it's a housekeeping thing. It gets rid of all that, any garbage that's accumulated. I won't go into the technical details, but it doesn't really matter. Clearing caches is always a good idea, especially if your site is acting weird. You might have added some new modules or deleted some modules or changed some stuff around, and there's some garbage that's left over that Drupal just hasn't had a chance to clean up yet. Clearing all caches, look, no harm in doing it several times. Okay, you're not going to break your site. Clearing all caches helps with that. It helps get rid of any garbage. And so if your site is acting weird, run cron, clear all caches. Okay, remember, go to configuration, performance, and clear caches. That's actually going to be very helpful. Last but not least, okay, what we're going to do is sometimes if your site's acting weird and you've run cron and you've cleared the caches and you're like, no, this is still really strange, it can be helpful to go to the report section. Okay, and right here where it says recent log messages, let's go ahead and click on here. This is all the stuff that has happened on your site. Okay, and you might get some messages here that are useful. Right now, nothing bad is happening on my site, so I don't really have any interesting messages here. Although you can see that, I've got, this records every action on my site, like search content from Winnipeg. If someone else tries to log into my site, I see it here. Everything is logged here. If you see error messages here, this could be a clue as to what's going on with your site, what's wrong with your site. If your site is acting funky and you go and you've cleared the cache and you've run cron and it's still acting funky, go to reports, look at those recent log messages, and you might say, hey, there's a little error message right here. That's not that big of a deal. That just basically means that we tried to look for the About Us page and it didn't show up. No big deal, okay? But you might see an error message and it might give you a clue as to what the problem is. Maybe there's a module that's, not acting properly or whatever. So keep that in mind, okay? Clearing the site cache, running cron, and checking your log messages for error messages, okay? So again, big thanks. Big thanks to Johan Falk for teaching me that. And really, like I said, if you're really serious about learning Drupal, go to his site. Okay, I'll include the address in the show notes, but go to his site and watch his screencast. He's got a great teaching method, and he goes into great detail on all the stuff in Drupal 7, and I really appreciate that. So thank you very much, Johan, and thank you for watching, and I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you next time.